And it's interesting that today we're going to talk about unity in Hanukkah and about control. So how appropriate is that? Is there anyone here who started out with the Jewish faith? Okay, so this might be some awareness for you, what we're talking about today, and what Hanukkah means, and also how it relates to unity and how we look at things. So we're going to speak about Hanukkah a little bit, the history of it, and why and how they celebrate, the metaphysics of what Hanukkah means to us, because as unity people, we always look at how does it relate in my own life, and also about your thinking and my thinking. Okay, so here's some trivia. How many donuts are eaten in Israel during Hanukkah? As many as possible. I think you're absolutely right. Actually, they say 17.5 million donuts are said to be eaten over the course of Hanukkah. It's really a celebration. And so as a consequence, it's chocolates. It's usually jelly-filled donuts. I don't know if you like those, but it was my dad's favorite, the ones that are rolled in sugar and then have some kind of really wonderful red jelly inside. He would search the donut shops to see who had just freshly made them and have one with coffee all the time. So bless my dad. So the word Hanukkah translates to dedication and also to devotion. And I think my battery is a little bit slow, so just bear with me. So why is Hanukkah celebrated? So it goes back to 165 BC, and the Syrian king ordered the Jewish people to give up their rites, beliefs, worship Greek gods, and eat pork, which was strictly against Jewish law. Now think about that. If you were all of a sudden told that you had to do things that just went against what you believed in, what a horrible, horrible situation that must have been. So just imagine that. They really believed that eating pork also was unhealthy for them, and still continue to, the Jewish people do. And I have my own theories on that, like pork is probably one of the meats that doesn't stay edible for very long because it gets a bacteria and that kind of thing. And so it was probably a safety issue as well, but it was also being faithful to the God of their understanding. So there was a war or a rebellion as a consequence of this law, and the Jewish army fought for their religious freedom. And they conquered the Greek soldiers and restored the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And I don't know for how long a period of time that was, but that was in fact what happened. And so Hanukkah marks the religious freedom of the Jewish community, which includes the miracle of oil, which I'll talk about a bit, which they had enough for only one day, but miraculously lit the candles on the menorah for 8 days. And they also play this game called dreidel, and you can win chocolate coins or real coins. It was sort of a form of gambling, but you got like donuts or chicken bones. Like, you want to show your bag of chicken bones? They're East Coast treasure. Chicken bones are a cinnamon-coated candy, bittersweet chocolate in the middle, and they look like little short chicken bones. So dreidel is the game that they used to play during the Hanukkah holidays and at other times during this war as well. And it was a time when they could orally teach the children the traditions from the Torah, because it wasn't allowed to be written down anywhere. And so as they were playing these games, they were teaching the children about the Torah. And I don't know if any of you have heard of a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, but part of that is that tradition as well, where the young people, when they become an adult, actually have to be able to speak the Torah, a certain part of the Torah, verbatim without reading it. And so the oral tradition even today continues. And they were teaching the Torah, but if the Greeks came along, it just looked like they were gambling because they had coins and they had candy and they had donuts and they were playing this game. And these, if you see the picture there, these little, they're like a spinning top kind of thing. They had a letter on each side which represented these words. A great miracle happened there. So it's a reminder again of the history of the Jewish people and how they overcame all of this oppression that they had. And so on each side of the dreidel is the words Nun, Gimel, Hey, and Shin, which stand for a great miracle happened here. So they had to be very covert. And when you think about how awesome it is that we can be open about what we believe, relatively open. I mean, there are some individuals that we might say, this is what I believe, and they look at us sideways and go, oh, and that's okay. But the world is slowly transforming, and the openness of individuals to not judge others is really improving. There is a religious science church in the Ukraine that has been there now for about 15 years, and it's illegal to have anything other than Catholicism and the traditional religions there. And so they had to be very careful about what they even advertised that they did. And they're very similar to Unity. And so they taught the idea that God is within and all of that sort of thing. And we often on the internet, when we get emails from the minister that's there, talks about how challenging it is to promote who they are and where they can have conversations around what it is that they believe, because it's illegal elsewhere. And so it's still going on in the world, which is really quite phenomenal. So as we gain the consciousness of this opening to everyone's way of being, and that it's okay, that the world is going to change. It is changing, and we're evidence of it. So I start with the premise that there is something right and wonderful about me. I am open to receive. I am open to believe that I am capable of great things. There are miracles in this very room just for me, and I claim them now. Let's say all of that together. I start with the premise that there is something right and wonderful about me. I'm open to receive. I'm open to believe that I am capable of great things. There are miracles in this very room just for me, and I claim them now. How does that feel? Good. Yes. So the story of Hanukkah is about faith. At Unity, we look at stories through a metaphysical perspective. All the characters are aspects of your consciousness. So whether you're reading a book, whether you're hearing a story, whether it's new or old, whether you're reading the Bible, whether you're hearing the story of Hanukkah, we look at it as unity, as how does each aspect of that relate to aspects of my life? Because we believe that our thoughts create our life, and everything that's happening out there, including what I'm experiencing and the stories I'm hearing, are actually reflections of who I am or who you are. And so when something comes up, like the story of Hanukkah, how does that relate to me and my life today? So that means that any text, no matter how old it is, like the Bible, for instance, no matter how many translations it may have, which are thousands, that there is something in there for you, because how is that story speaking to you in your consciousness? Does that make sense? So the stories in the Bible become relevant for you right where you are as a consequence of that way of looking at things, which I just think is great. So the idea of the Greeks in this Hanukkah story represent control and the need for control. So there is a part of us that is Greek, that needs to control, right? I mean, we talked about that this morning. Think about the things that you attempted to control just today or this past week, whether successfully or not. And it's that do it this way or else. Think about some of the family members who have to celebrate Christmas a certain way or else it's just not Christmas. Or certain people have to be there, it's just not Christmas. That's the Greek in terms of consciousness in you. And so you think of the Hanukkah story, the Greeks were the part of the consciousness that was attempting to control the consciousness of the Jewish people. So the idea that if we conform, we'll be safe, how often, though, are we really happy in that safety when we conform to the way that somebody is bullishly trying to make us be a certain way? Not too happy, right? Even ourselves, when we should on ourselves, it's not usually very happy. So why have we not figured out how to stop making fear out there run the world? Because it really does. Have you ever watched CNN, constant negative news? Or anything like that? The thing is that it's out there. Can you control what's out there? It's not a trick question. Jackie, you win a chicken bone. Because the problem's not out there, it's in you. And I don't mean that you have a problem. What I mean is that you have a consciousness of control and conformity. And when you start to translate that consciousness of control and conformity to one of acceptance, non-judgment, and love, that then what's out there starts to change, because what you see is based on what you believe. And what you believe comes rushing at you in every possible way. Does that make sense? Anybody experienced that? Because I sure did. And continue to this week too. Want to share?
Sure. I went to a party for the YWCA where I work 3 hours a week. And I walked in and they had a raffle and I said, I'm feeling lucky, I'm going to win. And I won 2 big prizes.
Fabulous, isn't it? What's in you, and in is in large letters because what's in you is projected out there. And so whether you don't want to admit it or not doesn't matter. It's like gravity works all the time. The principle of spirit works all the time, whether you like it or not, whether you choose to ignore it or not, whether you choose to pay attention to it or not, it is working. And so as a consequence, what's happening out there that you are perceiving is coming from somewhere within you. Somehow, some way, you have created that reaction, that reality, that perspective. So in unity, we lead you to the problem and to the solution. So we're not here just to say, look at all of the trouble in the world, look at how you might be thinking negatively, look at all of that, but we also help to show you how to think, to translate that into something that's more positive. And sure, we can't change the world in the blink of an eye, at least not yet, because there are millions and millions and millions of people out there that are putting the problem out there, that are living in fear and control and all of that. But one person at a time, we make a difference. I'm sure that most of you can say that when you're in that place of love, that life is pretty tickety-boo and pretty good. Wouldn't you say that's true? So when you become awakened to the self, to the spirit in you, then the world really truly does begin to change. And that's the nugget of hope. That's basically what the holiday season is about. It's the idea of the birth of the light within you. That's the metaphysics of Christmas. Is that at this time, as the world is getting darker and darker by the day till the 21st of December or thereabouts, that it's the same in our consciousness, that as we are in a situation that seems darker and darker and darker and darker because it's not resolving, that there is this glimmer of hope, and that as soon as that hope sparks, that everything starts to change. So the Greeks represent the part of you that is controlling and fixing so that you are pleasing in God's eyes or in someone else's, depending on what your faith background is. So who are you really? Who are you? What was that, Colvin?
Well, that's what you said.
Yes, you are. And if you think God requires you to be different than you are, guess what? God doesn't require anything of you. And first of all, where is God? Yes, right at the center of who you are. And you are perfect just the way you are. And sure, you may need to know high to figure out low. You may need to know hot to figure out cold. You may need to know hate to figure out love. But that's part of the human experience. So the Greeks, think about this. The Greeks worshipped Zeus, which required sacrifice. And so back in the day, they used to actually sacrifice their firstborn, their fattest calf, all kinds of things to get God's favor. And in what I understand of all of this, it's not about sacrifice, it's about choice. And that love may require you to stretch. Anybody stretched just for the love of yourself or the love of someone else? And as a consequence, you look back and go, wow, I'm just so much more of who I'm meant to be as a consequence of it. Doesn't feel like it at the moment. It can actually feel pretty yucky and icky when love is causing you to expand. Can you think of something right now where love is causing you to stretch and to expand and to perhaps not be judgmental and not look at something going, this is the worst thing that could ever happen? Because that's stretching. That's stretching your faith. That's stretching your ability to wait until your own consciousness transforms so that something transforms. But the promise at this time of year is that it does. Because when you're focused on love rather than on fear, then what do you get more of? Love. So in the story, the Greeks were forcing the Jews to eat pork, and there was one high priest who finally just said enough. Everybody was attempting to kowtow to what the Greeks wanted. And one high priest finally had the guts to just say, enough, I'm not doing that. It goes against everything I believe. Have you ever reached that point in your life where you've just said, enough of this malarkey, or whatever you want to call it? I'm not going to do this. It does not fit who I am. It does not sit within me in the right way. So the metaphysics of the high priest represents one holy idea that will lift you out of control, and that it lives inside of you saying, no, this doesn't serve the spirit within me. And in the midst of some turmoil, don't you occasionally have that little kind of idea that this just doesn't feel right, but I'm not quite sure what to do? But there's this compelling feeling that, but I know there's something that I can do that's going to shift whatever this is. And it might mean stretching, doing something totally different than you ever did before, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. So in the story, war breaks out, just like within you, the holy war. And it's the idea of Charles Fillmore, who was one of the founders of Unity, said it's called chemicalization in his terms, where there's a conflict between the old way of being and this little whisper of a divine idea that's going, but come on over here. It's peaceful here. It's happy here. Love is here. Joy is here. And there's this, have you ever sat in that conflict? That war in your mind? I should do this, but no, this seems so, but, and the other is so much more compelling. Maccabee is a Hebrew acronym for who is like you among the heavenly powers, Lord. And they said that the people who led the Jewish people out of that oppression were the Maccabee people. And so it wasn't technically that they were Maccabees. What they were people who knew that they were following that divine light, that divine spark. They had that idea, that high priest idea, that there is something better here. So the hot is how you create your world. So what do you think is what you see? And I know in the middle of something that is pretty icky sticky, it's kind of difficult to look in the mirror and say, what was I thinking? But in reality, some way, somehow, your belief system, your thinking, has brought this to be. And within you is also that divine spark, that idea that will lead you out of it. And so as you see the lights of Christmas everywhere you go, remember that there is a part of you that is waiting to be ignited, waiting to be revealed, that is going to lift you out of that, whatever that darkness may be. It's always there. So the good news is you can do something about your thoughts. So the temple in this story is your consciousness. So they talk about how the Jewish people created this new temple. So it talks about how as they overcame the negativity and followed their light, that their consciousness changed. And the oil represents the thought and the power of love. So think about the menorah, for instance. It has the 8 candles. 7 in biblical terms and in metaphysical terms means as long as it takes. So in creation, for instance, it took 7 days. That means it took as long as it took. And so whenever you see 7 in the Bible, it means as long as it takes. When you see the number 8, it means that no matter how long it took, part of what got it there was this divine idea. And so when you see a menorah in someone's window or in a picture, and you see the 8 candles, it's representing the idea that things take as long as they take. But at the same time, there is always this divine idea that's going to lift you out of whatever it is that you're in. Pretty beautiful stuff, isn't it? So 8 is outside of the unexpected, the patterns that keep repeating in your life above and beyond the challenges. Step outside so a miracle, I call it a natural, can happen. Because naturally, when you're open to spirit, things just unfold. I don't think they're miracles at all. They're not some, as someone might call, divine intervention. It's just me tuning in to the channel of love. So it's natural. So we focus on a problem, and then we ask God to focus on it too. How many have prayed, oh, look at how terrible this is. God, do something about this. And what happens? We get to focus on the problem some more. Because God goes, oh, you want to focus on the problem? Okay, let's focus on the problem. But what you're being called for, that little light that's within you, is to look beyond to the possibilities. And we invite you through prayer, through meditation, to envision that which you desire as a feeling in your body. Allow it to resonate in terms of the end result of whatever challenge you may have. So let's say it's financial. See yourself just being so peaceful and so comfortable because there is more than enough to share, to spare, and to buy all of the things that you require to live your life. If it's a relationship, and that's the challenge, to know that as you focus on how it feels to be in this relationship that just makes your heart sing, that makes you feel so loved and so supported, to laugh, to be with someone, guess what happens? Spirit goes, okay, I can do that. I can start to bring that to you, rather than hanging on to the negative that you might have been. Or physical. Maybe you have a health challenge right now. Rather than to focus on, oh, this is so terrible and I don't know how it's ever going to get any better and look at how awful this is, to imagining yourself climbing to Machu Picchu, or what that feels like, or being in your favorite place and you never used to be able to get there. And now you're there. I'm speaking of myself here, of course. I hope to climb Machu Picchu. Maybe I'll have to take the train, but that's okay. So Hanukkah is a story about faith, and faith says that out of nothing, in the midst of this problem, a way is made. And that's really, truly the essence of this time of year, is that there is this light that is within you, and if you just take a moment in the midst of whatever turmoil or turbulence might be going on and just say, I know a way is made because it already exists in me. So you might say, I've got nothing, and there's no way. But that's you speaking to the little mind rather than the big mind that is spirit. And when you finally say, I've got nothing, there's no way. And I mean, I remember reaching that point in terms of my own physical pain that I had this spring, was, I don't know how to get through this. I finally gave up. And Spirit said, thank God, finally I can come in and help you. And help arrived in the most incredible ways. Can you think of situations like that too, where you just finally said, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do next. And in that surrender, something started to happen. Maybe you're in that place now. I invite you to just hear Spirit with this great big smile within you going, thank God, finally. Know that Spirit lives beyond any problem, beyond any brokenness. So please read this with me. I choose now to see the love, to feel the presence, to see and feel power. I willingly release all fear and I allow the love within to guide me. I remember my source, my essence now. So I would invite you to take the next 8 days thinking about the 8 candles of the menorah to shine the light. Pick one problem or challenge and say to yourself on a daily basis, I'm releasing control, judgment, doubt, and fear. Can you say that? I am releasing control, judgment, doubt, and fear. So Hanukkah means devotion. I kind of like that, and I think from here on in I'm going to celebrate Hanukkah every year. Begin your personal 8-day dedication of your thoughts and faith to a higher idea. Just be willing. Be willing for a little nugget of an idea to show up on how you might move forward to transform whatever it is that is darkness in your life right now. So we spoke about the history of Hanukkah, the metaphysics of Hanukkah, and how your thinking really truly does create your life.